Well, he was in the grind of the NFL for 20 seasons. 15 with the Saints, 5 with the Chargers, 13-time Pro Bowler. He's going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame in 2026, and he'll be a first-ballot guy. I'm just looking at his notable NFL records. 7 times leading the NFL in passing yards. And I want to bring on Drew Brees because that's interesting when not that you didn't throw deep a lot, but to lead the NFL in passing yards, we tend to think Marino and Mahomes, the deep ball. And that's not what the league is. The league is pre-snap. And I was talking to a GM last night, and he said, everybody talks Brady and Manning. He goes, when I looked at tape, what Drew Brees did pre-snap, he and Payton, was music. It was Broadway. They were making, and I think about that, Drew, because we rush everybody now, all these quarterbacks. If you're not good, by your second Thanksgiving, half the guys in the room are raising their hands when you're not there saying draft a new quarterback. You got so good at the offensive line. And this GM was like, there's never been anybody better than Brees at this. At the line, it was different than everybody. How long did it take you, as I watched Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, before literally, Drew, you had seen everything and you were manipulating them? They weren't manipulating you?
Look, that's a great question. When I played at Purdy University, we ran the spread offense. I wasn't responsible for changing any protections or doing anything like that. Everything that we had were built-in hots. You just knew when you had to get rid of the ball. You knew when there was a guy coming free, and then that might adjust the clock in your head. When I got to the NFL, it was very much the same way my first 5 years with the San Diego Chargers. I wasn't responsible for mic IDs. I wasn't responsible for protections. I was just responsible to get the ball out on time, in rhythm. Every route concept had a progression, and I had to know and understand when I was going to be hot. In other words, when there was going to be a free rusher that was unblocked, according to what the protection scheme was. And then I just had to know I had to get the ball out. Maybe there was a sight adjustment that it was made by a receiver that we had to be on the same page.
Yeah.
When I got to New Orleans, Sean Payton's offense required the quarterback put the quarterback in a position where, hey, it's necessary for you now to take on the responsibility of calling out, who the Mike linebacker is, or who the linebacker is that the offensive line is now responsible for, right? Typically, in a standard 4-down defensive lineman front, the line, your 5 linemen are going to be responsible for those 4 plus 1 more. So it was your job to identify who that 5th guy was that we're responsible for. Depending on the run play, if it was a run play, hey, whoever I'm miking, that might be who you're going to. It might be meaning that I'm IDing this guy, and then you're going to block the guy to the left. There was all these different adjustments then that would happen on 3rd down where, now the defense is going to play a bunch of different fronts, and you have protection calls that will all of a sudden send 4 linemen to the right, or all 5 linemen to the right, or, 3 linemen to the right. And now the back's going to step up and he's going to take whoever's in the A gap. Right. So you just have all these different calls based on, who you're identifying and what type of pressure is coming. And that responsibility became more and more as I got into my career. But honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way because I wanted to be in control of those things. I wanted to be in a position where I was trying to put our linemen in the best matchup positions to be able to, take their guys and protect. I didn't want Alvin Kamara to have to block, a 250-pound linebacker or even a big outside linebacker or defensive end. Like, I would try to get him out in the route as much as possible. So if I could make a different declaration that would allow Alvin Kamara to free release, well, guess what? That's better for his longevity. It's also better for me because it gives me, another weapon in the secondary. So all these things were a progression. I certainly didn't start off that way year 1, year 2, not even until year 6, 7, 8, probably.
Wow.
So yeah, it took some time.
Yeah, and we're not patient like that anymore. If Bo Nix isn't good by Thanksgiving next year. And what's interesting is Sean's intense. So I got to know Sean really well when he worked here, and I loved him. Dinner with Sean Payton, story time. And he's intense. Now, everybody coaches different. Matt LaFleur doesn't feel as intense. Sean Payton feels more intense. So if I said, hey, Bo Nix, Drew Brees is going to give you one piece of advice for Sean's personality, his intellect. You're smiling. What is the piece of advice you would give Bo Nix? Because Sean can get hot. Sean's going to be demanding. Your personality can handle it. Is there a piece of advice you'd give Bo Nix?
Yeah, be just as demanding right back to him.
Okay.
You know, Sean likes that. Sean wants to see you confident and sure. Everything. Obviously, Sean and I got to a place with our relationship where it was almost like we could finish each other's sentences. Yeah. I knew exactly what he was thinking before he called the play. We had just rehearsed it so much. We had talked about it so much throughout the course of the week that, I knew the minute we crossed the 50-yard line, this was the play call coming out of his mouth. The minute we're inside the red zone, this is the play we're running. The minute they go to this defense, he wants this, or that pressure, he wants this, right? And it's stuff that we've talked about and rehearsed together. Night before the game, we're dotting the call sheet. Here's my favorite play, Sean. He's telling me his favorite plays, right? We're just, again, rehearsing it over and over so that we can just be as if, kind of one, one mind out there together. But look, there, of course, there were moments where, man, I'm going to make a mistake. And we got to the point where, man, he knows that I knew that I made the mistake, right? He doesn't need to be yelling and screaming at me. But for a young quarterback who he's trying to really teach and coach and kind of get on the same page with him, there's probably going to be a lot more of that, and he'll be pretty firm with you at times. And I think what he loves to see, and I think a lot of this came from Parcells. Parcells would be very demanding on his assistant coaches, right? And Parcells wanted those coaches to have the same type of, kind of intensity and confidence coming right back at him. So I think Sean loves that coming back from the quarterback. So
Aaron Rodgers said something I thought was really smart, and Aaron's won a lot of football games and the Jets haven't. And Aaron said, and I've heard this before, but Aaron was very eloquent. He said, everybody kind of acts the same way when they lose. They're pissed, they work harder, they galvanize. But it's different when you win. Guys splinter off. They get into endorsements. They get into their fields. That's a whole different ball. San Francisco had a noisy offseason. Travis Kelce's now dating the world's most popular. I mean, when you win, the world changes. So you went, like Aaron Rodgers, you went to a loser. You made him a winner. Go back to the first, because you guys won right out of the chute, you and Sean, that first year. How did you take a losing franchise, win, and New Orleans, by the way, they're not going to bed at 8:45. New Orleans and New York are not Indianapolis. So it's a port city. There's a lot happening. Go back to your first year. Winning 23-year-old teammates, was that difficult or challenging?
Yeah, well, you have to look at the guys that were brought in that year. Yeah, I mean, look, here we are 6 months post-Katrina. The entire city of New Orleans had been destroyed, devastated, right? Yeah. I mean, there was nothing to show off about New Orleans for anybody coming to town, right? Like this day and age with, recruiting and the way that you're going to try to wine and dine guys when they come in, there was no real whining and dining. It was, hey, you have to see this for what it is. And so it's going to take a special type of person and a special mindset to embrace the challenge that you're going to face here, but also see the realm of possibility, right? Can you share this vision with us? And I certainly did. I felt like it was a calling for me to be there. I was coming off of a pretty serious injury, right? Where I wasn't sure how great a football player I was going to be able to be coming back. I really did. Sean Payton had a ton of confidence in me. Mickey Loomis, that entire organization, a ton of confidence in me. Maybe more so than I did myself at the time. And you look at the rest of the free agents that were brought in that year as well. It's not like everybody was banging down the door to get these guys,
Right.
It was a little bit of a joke. We had one of our coaches, Joe Vitt, called that group in 2006 the Castaways. Right. It was like nobody else wanted you. We'll take you. Because look, you're tough guys. You're the right type of mindset. Like you share the vision. You see what we can accomplish here. It's going to be a difficult journey, but you're not going to shy away from that. You're not afraid of that. And like we needed that mentality. We needed those types of guys. Like that's what it was going to take. And that first season was obviously very magical. I mean, we were not as talented a team as the teams that we stepped on the field with. Yeah. But man, we were gritty, we were tough, and we had the city on our shoulders, right there beside us, feeling like we had so much more to play for than everybody else. And that's really what I think that first season was about. But it was also about what helped create the foundation for what I think the New Orleans Saints became in the Sean Payton era. And that was what we prided ourselves on.
Yeah. So because you went to Iowa State, you went to Purdue, not a football power. In fact, when you went there, before you got there, it was mostly basketball. The Boilermakers had the basketball, Gene Katie programs, that kind of stuff. And so you in state of Texas, Drew's not 6'4". Well, you know the game. And so you probably have a soft spot for Brock Purdy. I watched them at college. And the first time, so he gets drafted at the end, whatever. I mean, outside of Kurt Warner, Romo, these guys get drafted late. Maybe Mark Brunell. Most guys get, good guys get drafted first, second, third, whatever. And then all of a sudden he starts winning, and I won't give him any credit. I'm like, well, it's Shanahan. It's a bunch of Hall of Fame guys. And then slowly but surely you're like, he's pretty good. And so it took me a while to figure it out. It probably took you a lot less to figure it out. When is the first time you watched Purdy? Because you guys have some of the same dimensions in terms of size. When's the first time you watched him? I'm sure it was years before me and went, oh, yeah, this works. This is a franchise guy.
No, it really wasn't. I mean, when he got his first start, midway through his rookie year after Trey Lance goes out and Garoppolo goes out, and all of a sudden here's basically the third string guy, Mr. Irrelevant, coming in. I could tell the moment I saw the first half of the first game that he played, I'm like, okay, this guy is in command of the offense. This guy's in and out of the huddle. He's controlling the line of scrimmage, right? The shifts, the motions, all the things that offense requires in a field general to be able to coordinate. Oh, man, he's got incredible rhythm. He throws with a great base. He's very calm. He's very poised, right? Nothing seems to shake him. So all those things I pick up on right away. And then it's like, okay, where the heck did this guy come from? And then you start looking at it, you're like, okay, this makes perfect sense. Here's a guy who started almost 50 games in college, right? He played at a school where 90% of the time when they stepped on the field, they were the underdog. Oh, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
They weren't winning any beauty contests. They weren't winning the pregame competitions, and they were having to kind of gut it out, right? He played in a bunch of close games, a bunch of really competitive games. That molds you, right? That's then who you become. That becomes what you're used to, right? So then all of a sudden these big time situations, going into moments where people are doubting you, or you're playing against people that are supposed to be better than you, that doesn't faze you anymore, right? So so much of playing this position at the highest level in the NFL is about confidence. It's about belief. It's about faith. And the guys that are really good at it, there's just an unwavering faith and confidence, no matter what the situation, no matter who's hurt around them or what circumstances around them might lead others to say that, hey, they're not going to be able to get it done. You embrace that. You just play with this constant chip on your shoulder and this edge that leads you to be successful.
By the way, when Joe Burrow this week, I don't know if we still have it, there was a piece of video, and we'll wrap it up with this. Burrow is seen after the game walking in full uniform. Here it is. It's like TMZ stuff. I'm going to go talk with the coach because they start 0-3. And, it's funny. Tony Gonzalez once told me he wasn't comfortable early in his career doing stuff like that. And I think that's when Zach Taylor and you are not even – you're just going right to a secret meeting. What does that tell you? And did you ever have to do that? But what does that tell you?
That tells me they have a great relationship. And that they trust in one another to be able to voice their opinions and their concerns, maybe even vent a little bit. Look, Sean Payton was my guy to vent to at times, and I was his guy to vent to at times. It's great when you have that type of relationship with your head coach and play caller. Sean and I had tons of moments like that early on as we were trying to build the foundation for that team. And Sean was including me in those conversations. And I really, really appreciated that because it empowered me and equipped me in a lot of ways. And I see them doing that the exact same way. I mean, that moment right there looks so familiar to me because there are things that coming out of a game, obviously emotions are running high. Hey, they didn't expect to start off 0-3, lose on Monday Night Football, to kind of an upstart Commanders team, So like, to me, that just shows, hey, good relationship, good lines of communication. I think they're going to be fine as a result.
Yeah. I got to ask you one more thing, because Sean really, he got a little heat in Denver because he would call Russell Wilson out and stuff. Did you and Sean ever have a bad day? Like, it got really sideways? One?
Well, I do remember, I mean, I wouldn't say like, I do remember at one point, especially early on, when Sean was building the program, right? 06, 7, 8, we had tough physical practices. I mean, during the week of practice now, nobody hardly puts pads on. Right. But like, we go full pads 2-3 days a week, leading up to a game on Sundays. That was a very common thing. So a little bit of the old school Bill Parcells,
Sure.
mindset. And he was really trying to create a mindset and a mentality there. And I remember one practice where, man, I just felt like the team was beat up, right? Guys needed a break. And sure enough, here we are, full padded practice. And I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, man, I don't know if guys are going to buy into this, on a day like today.
Yeah.
And so we got together as a group of captains, all the captains together. And it's like, all right, guys, what are we going to do? Like, this is our team, and Sean would always say, look, the best teams, at some point, the leaders on the team take control of the team, right? You're not taking instructions from the coaches. You're taking instructions from the leaders on the team. And so I was like, all right, this is what he was talking about. This is this moment, right? This is where we got to call the shots. So we get together as a group, and it's like, hey, we're not going out in pads. It was kind of like, I kind of had the final say in it,
Yeah.
I was like, we're not going out in pads. All right. Go out in shells and just tell everybody, man, we better be flying around, like, no excuses. Don't give them an excuse to say that we weren't ready for Sunday because we weren't prepared. We weren't flying around. So we get out there and everybody's all amped up, like, yeah, we're bucking the system. Like, we're making the call. We get out there in shells, and literally, like, within 15 seconds, everybody comes hightailing it back in from the field. And they're like, hey, we have to put pads on. Like, Sean's going ballistic out there, So we very quickly put pads on and went back out and just got our work done and whatever. We were all scared of Sean. But no, that was probably an early heated exchange, where it was like you thought you were doing something good for the team, and it backfired a little bit.
Yeah, got a little hot. With Sean. That's great. I love all the storytelling, Drew. Real pleasure. We're going to try to bring on Drew as regularly as we can. 20 years, going to be a first ballot guy. Really, I thought the storytelling was great, man. I love this. I can't wait for more of it, and I appreciate you taking 20 minutes of your day for us, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Colin.
You bet. Drew Brees.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.